Karen stormed over, scissors in hand, and started cutting the American flag rope. "You can't fly that flag in this neighborhood," she yelled. Across the street, retired General Jack Taylor watched in stunned silence. This wasn't the America he fought for. Suddenly, Karen turned toward him, an evil glint in her eye. Jack knew he had to act, but at 78 years old, could he still defend the flag and his country one last time? General Jack Taylor eased his 78-year-old body out of the worn leather recliner, joints creaking, and moved the living room window. He'd been watching Karen from across the street, a scowl etched on her face as she stormed up the driveway. Now she stood in front of his neighbor's home, a pair of scissors gripped tightly in her hand. What the hell does she think she's doing? Jack muttered under his breath, heart pounding. He watched in disbelief as Karen began sawing through the rope holding up the American flag. "Not on my watch," he growled, rushing to the front door. Jack yanked it open, the screen door slamming against the frame. "Hey, get away from that flag," he bellowed, startling Karen. She whirled around, eyes wide. "This neighborhood doesn't need your backwards patriotism," she spat, lifting the scissors menacingly. "That flag represents oppression. I'm taking it down." Jack felt the rage boiling inside him. "That flag represents the freedom you enjoy every damn day, you ungrateful." He cut himself off, fists clenching at his sides. "My friends died defending that flag. I won't let you disrespect their sacrifice." Karen sneered. "Your friends died for a lie. This country was built on the backs of the oppressed. That flag is a symbol of white supremacy." Jack's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what you're talking about." He took a step forward, but Karen brandished the scissors, backing away. "Don't come any closer, old man," she warned. "I'll cut you just like I'm cutting this flag." The retired general paused, mind racing. He couldn't let Karen desecrate the flag, but he knew he was no match for her in a physical confrontation. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "You know, you're right," Jack said, raising his hands in surrender. "This flag doesn't represent the America you believe in. But it represents the America I fought for, the one with freedom and justice for all." He fixed Karen with a steely gaze. "If you want to take it down, you'll have to go through me first." Karen hesitated, the scissors wavering in her grip. Jack seized the moment, lunging forward and wresting the scissors from her hand. Karen let out a startled cry, but Jack was already moving, racing toward the flagpole. "No," Karen screamed, chasing after him. "You can't do this." Jack felt a surge of adrenaline as he reached the flag, tightening his grip on the scissors. This was for his fallen brothers, for the country he'd sworn to protect. He wouldn't let anyone, not even a misguided woman like Karen, desecrate the symbol of their sacrifice. With a determined slice, the rope gave way, and the flag unfurled majestically in the breeze. Karen let out a frustrated scream, but Jack stood tall, his eyes shining with pride. He knew in that moment, this battle was far from over. Karen let out a frustrated scream as the American flag unfurled defiantly in the breeze. General Jack Taylor stood his ground, the scissors still gripped tightly in his hand. "How dare you?" Karen spat, her face contorted with rage. "That flag represents everything that's wrong with this country. It's a symbol of oppression and white supremacy." Jack felt his blood boil at her words. "That flag represents the freedom you enjoy every single day, you ungrateful brat," he shot back. "My friends died defending that flag, and I'll be damned if I let you disrespect their sacrifice." Karen narrowed her eyes, taking a step closer. "Your friends died for a lie. This country was built on the backs of the oppressed, and that flag is a symbol of that legacy. I'm taking it down, whether you like it or not." Jack tensed, shifting his weight. "You'll have to go through me first," he growled, unwavering. Karen let out a harsh laugh. "You're just an old man. What can you possibly do to stop me?" Jack's jaw tightened. "I may be old, but I'm not going down without a fight. He tightened his grip on the scissors, ready to defend the flag with his life if necessary. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind them. "What's going on here?" Both Jack and Karen turned to see a police officer striding toward them, his hand resting on the holster at his hip. "Officer, thank goodness you're here," Karen said, her voice tripping with false concern. "This man is refusing to let me take down his offensive flag. It's a symbol of oppression and white supremacy, and I have every right to remove it." The officer's brow furrowed as he glanced between the two. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the flag. Damaging or removing someone else's property is against the law." Karen's face fell, and she shot Jack a venomous glare. "This isn't over, old man," she hissed, before stalking back toward her own home. Jack watched her go, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He turned to the officer, his expression one of weary gratitude. "Thank you, officer," he said, his voice laced with relief. "I served this country for over 30 years, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let someone like her disrespect the flag I fought for." The officer nodded, his gaze softening. "I understand, sir. You did the right thing standing up for that flag. We need more people like you in this world." Jack felt a surge of pride. "Well, I'm not done yet," he said, his eyes narrowing. "That woman needs to learn a lesson about respecting the sacrifices of those who fought for this country's freedom." The officer raised an eyebrow. "I can't encourage you to take the law into your own hands, sir, but I understand the sentiment." Jack grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Don't worry, officer. I've got a plan." With that, he turned and headed back toward his house, the American flag still fluttering proudly in the breeze. Karen may have cut his rope, but she hadn't broken his spirit, and he was about to show her just how resilient an old soldier could be. General Jack Taylor strode back into his house, his mind racing. He had to find a way to teach Karen a lesson about respecting the flag and the sacrifices of those who fought for this country's freedom. As he paced the living room, his gaze fell on a framed photograph on the mantel. A group shot of his old military unit, taken just before their deployment to Afghanistan. A determined glint appeared in his eyes. "That's it," he murmured, moving to the bookshelf and retrieving a thick photo album. Flipping through the pages, he found what he was looking for. A series of high-resolution images from his time in the service. Carefully, he began to remove them from the album, his fingers trembling slightly with the weight of the memories they held. Just then, the doorbell rang. Jack paused, his heart racing, before cautiously making his way to the front door. Peering through the peephole, he recognized the uniform of the police officer who had intervened earlier. Taking a deep breath, he pulled the door open. "Officer, what can I do for you?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. The officer cleared his throat, shifting his weight. "Sir, I wanted to follow up on the incident earlier with your neighbor. I just wanted to make sure everything is all right and that there aren't any issues I should be aware of." Jack felt a surge of appreciation for the officer's concern. "Well, I appreciate you checking in, son," he said, the corners of his mouth quirking upward. "I'm doing just fine. That woman may have cut my flag rope, but she didn't break my spirit." The officer nodded, a relieved expression on his face. "I'm glad to hear that, sir. I know how much that flag must mean to you, having served our country." He paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "If you don't mind me asking, what are you planning to do about it?" Jack chuckled, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Oh, I've got a few ideas up my sleeve. Don't you worry, I'm not going to do anything that'll land me in trouble. But that woman needs to learn a lesson about respecting the sacrifices of those who fought for this country's freedom." The officer considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Well, I can't exactly condone any extra-legal actions," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "But I'll turn a blind eye, as long as you keep it within reasonable bounds." Jack grinned, clapping the officer on the shoulder. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, son. I'll make sure to keep you in the loop." With a nod, the officer turned and headed back to his patrol car, and Jack closed the door, a sense of renewed purpose coursing through him. He glanced down at the photographs in his hand, a determined expression on his face. "All right, you ungrateful brat," he muttered, his fingers tightening around the images. "Time to show you what this flag really means." General Jack Taylor pored over the photographs, his weathered fingers tracing the images of his old comrades in arms. He could still hear their laughter, still feel the camaraderie that had forged an unbreakable bond between them. And it was all for the flag, the symbol they had sworn to defend with their lives. A steely determination settled over him as he began to meticulously arrange the photographs on his kitchen table. This was more than just about teaching Karen a lesson. It was about honoring the sacrifices of those who had given everything for their country. As the sun began to set, Jack stepped back, surveying his work. The photographs, each one a testament to the courage and valor of his brothers, were arranged in a perfect grid, the American flag proudly displayed at the center. He nodded, a satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Grabbing a cardboard box, he carefully placed the photos inside, sealing it shut with packing tape. Then, with a renewed sense of purpose, he strode across the street, the box tucked securely under his arm. Karen opened the door, her expression one of surprise and irritation. "What do you want, old man?" she spat, her eyes narrowing. Jack's gaze was unwavering. "I'm here to teach you a lesson, Karen," he said, his voice calm and measured. "A lesson about respecting the sacrifices of those who fought for the freedoms you enjoy every day." Karen's lips curled into a sneer. "I don't have time for your outdated patriotism. That flag represents nothing but oppression and white supremacy." Jack's jaw tightened, but he refused to rise to her bait. "That's where you're wrong, Karen. This flag," he said, gesturing toward the one still flying proudly in his neighbor's yard, "represents the very ideals that make this country great. Freedom, justice, and equality for all." He stepped forward, offering the box to her. "These photographs are of my brothers in arms, the men and women who gave their lives to defend that flag. I want you to look at them, to see the faces of those who sacrificed everything for this country." Karen eyed the box with disdain. "And why should I care about your precious photographs? They died for a lie." Jack felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to remain calm. "These people were heroes, Karen. They fought and died to protect your right to spew your hatred and disrespect." He paused, his eyes hardening. "But I won't let you dishonor their memory. You're going to look at these photographs, and you're going to understand the true meaning of that flag." Without waiting for a response, he pushed the box into Karen's hands, turning and heading back toward his own home. As he walked, he could feel the weight of the sacrifices etched into those photographs, and he knew that he had to do whatever it took to ensure their legacy lived on. Karen stood there, the box clutched tightly in her hands, a mix of confusion and defiance on her face. She glanced down at the photographs, and for a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her features. But then, with a scowl, she turned and slammed the door, disappearing into her house. Jack paused, his gaze fixed on the closed door. "This isn't over, Karen," he murmured, a determined glint in his eye. "Not by a long shot." Karen slammed the door, the cardboard box clutched tightly in her hands. She stared at it with a mix of anger and confusion, the weight of General Jack Taylor's words still lingering in the air. Placing the box on the kitchen counter, she hesitated for a moment before slowly lifting the lid. The photographs spilled out, their faces staring back at her, men and women in uniform, their expressions a mix of pride, determination, and a deep sense of purpose. Karen felt a twinge of unease as she studied the images, her fingers tracing the edges of the frames. These were not the faces of oppressors or white supremacists, as she had so easily dismissed them. There was a rawness, a humanity to these people that she couldn't ignore. Sinking into a nearby chair, She began to flip through the photographs, one by one. She saw the camaraderie in their eyes, the bond that had forged them into a formidable unit. And she couldn't help but wonder, what had driven these men and women to sacrifice so much for a country that, in her mind, had failed them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the kitchen, Karen found herself drawn to a particular image. It was a group shot, the soldiers gathered around a tattered American flag, their faces alight with a fierce pride. In the center stood Jack Taylor, his eyes shining with a fierce determination that Karen had seen firsthand. She traced the outline of the flag, her fingers trembling slightly. Perhaps she had been too quick to dismiss its significance, too blinded by her own sense of injustice to see the deeper meaning it held for those who had fought to protect it. A sudden realization dawned on her. This wasn't just about a piece of cloth. It was about the ideals it represented, the freedom and sacrifice that had been poured into its creation and preservation. And in that moment, Karen felt a shift within her, a softening of the anger and resentment that had fueled her actions. Closing the lid of the box, she rose from the chair, her mind racing. She knew she couldn't undo what she had done, couldn't erase the disrespect she had shown to the flag and to those who had fought for it. But perhaps, in some small way, she could begin to understand the depth of its meaning. With a deep breath, she turned and headed for the door, the box tucked firmly under her arm. She had a feeling that General Jack Taylor wasn't done with her yet, and she knew that she needed to be ready to face whatever he had in store. General Jack Taylor paced the length of his living room, his mind racing. He knew that his confrontation with Karen had been a success, at least in part. The photographs he had given her had clearly struck a chord, but he also knew that the battle was far from over. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Jack's gaze drifted to the American flag fluttering outside his window. The sight of it filled him with a sense of pride and purpose, a reminder of the sacrifices that had been made to preserve the ideals it represented. He knew that he couldn't let Karen's disrespect for the flag go unchallenged, but he also didn't want to stoop to her level. He had to find a way to reach her, to make her understand the true meaning of what she had tried to destroy. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Striding over, he pulled it open to find Karen standing on his doorstep, the cardboard box clutched in her hands. "General Taylor," she said, her voice softer than he had ever heard it before. I wanted to return these to you." Jack studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "What's the matter, Karen? Didn't you like what you saw?" Karen's gaze dropped to the ground, and for a moment, she seemed almost ashamed. "No, I mean, yes, I did. She paused, taking a deep breath. "I never realized the sacrifices these people made, the things they fought for." Jack felt a glimmer of hope in his chest, but he remained cautious. "And what exactly did they fight for, Karen?" "Freedom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They fought for the freedom that I take for granted every day." She looked up, her eyes shining with a newfound understanding. "I was wrong to try and take down that flag. It represents something much bigger than I ever realized." Jack nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'm glad you're starting to see that, Karen. That flag is a symbol of the ideals that this country was built on. Ideals that people like my friends fought and died to defend." He reached out, gently taking the box from her hands. "I hope those photographs helped you understand the true meaning of what that flag represents. It's not about oppression or white supremacy. It's about unity, courage, and the unwavering belief that every person deserves to be free." Karen nodded, her gaze once again dropping to the ground. I'm sorry, General Taylor, for everything. I was so blinded by my own anger that I couldn't see the bigger picture." "It's all right, Karen," Jack said, his voice gentle. "We all have a lot to learn when it comes to understanding the sacrifices of those who have fought for this country. The important thing is that you're willing to listen and try to see things from a different perspective." He paused, his expression hardening slightly. "But I also want you to know that I won't tolerate any further disrespect toward that flag. It's a symbol that means more to me than you can possibly imagine, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it." Karen nodded, her eyes widening slightly. "I understand, General. I won't do anything like that again. I just hope that one day I can learn to appreciate the flag the way you do." "Well, you're welcome to try," Jack said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "But it's not going to be easy. That flag has a way of getting under your skin, whether you like it or not." With a final nod, Karen turned and headed back across the street, her steps a little lighter than they had been before. Jack watched her go, a sense of cautious optimism settling over him. Perhaps, with time and understanding, he could help Karen see the true meaning of the flag, and in doing so, help heal the divisions that had torn their community apart. In the days that followed, General Jack Taylor kept a close eye on his neighbor's house, watching for any signs of trouble. He knew that his confrontation with Karen had been a turning point, but he also knew that old habits and deeply held beliefs weren't easily changed. As he sipped his morning coffee, his gaze drifted to the American flag fluttering proudly in the breeze. The sight of it still filled him with a sense of pride and purpose, a reminder of the sacrifices that had been made to protect the ideals it represented. Suddenly, movement across the street caught his eye. He watched as Karen emerged from her house, a small bundle in her hands. His heart raced, wondering if she was up to her old tricks again. But as she approached the flagpole, Jack was surprised to see her carefully unfurl the bundle, revealing a brand new American flag. With a reverence he had never seen from her before, Karen secured the flag to the rope and began to raise it, her movements slow and deliberate. Jack felt a surge of relief and pride as he watched the flag rise, its vibrant colors fluttering in the breeze. It was a far cry from the disrespect he had witnessed just days earlier, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. As the flag reached the top of the pole, Karen stood back, her gaze fixed on the stars and stripes. For a long moment, she simply stood there, her expression unreadable. Then, to Jack's astonishment, she turned and began to make her way back toward her house, pausing only to glance in his direction. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Jack saw something he had never expected to see in Karen's: a newfound respect, and perhaps even a glimmer of gratitude. Without a word, she nodded and continued on her way, leaving Jack to ponder the significance of what had just transpired. Had his efforts, his impassioned defense of the flag, shrewdly made a difference? Had he managed to reach the heart of this woman who had once seemed so determined to destroy the very symbol he held dear? As the days turned into weeks, Jack continued to watch, his vigilance never wavering. And each time he saw Karen tending to the flag, carefully unfurling it and raising it with the same reverence he had witnessed that day, he felt a sense of cautious optimism begin to take root. Perhaps, in the end, the battle for the flag had been won not through confrontation, but through understanding. Perhaps, in reaching across the divide and sharing the stories of those who had fought and died for its ideals, he had managed to plant the seeds of a new respect, a deeper appreciation for the symbol that had come to represent the very heart of the nation he had sworn to protect. Only time would tell, but for now, Jack was content to watch and wait, knowing that the fight for the flag was far from over, but that the path forward might just be paved with the understanding and respect he had fought so hard to cultivate. As the weeks turned into months, General Jack Taylor continued to watch from his window, a sense of cautious optimism growing within him. The American flag that had once been the source of such bitter conflict now flew proudly over his neighbor's home, a symbol of unity and respect that had emerged from the ashes of their confrontation. Karen, too, had undergone a remarkable transformation. Gone was the angry, defiant woman who had once tried to tear down the very fabric of the nation he had sworn to defend. In her place was a person who had seen the true meaning behind the flag, the sacrifices and ideals it represented. Jack had witnessed her tending to the flag with a reverence he had never expected to see, carefully unfurling it and raising it with a sense of purpose that belied her previous actions. And each time he saw her perform this ritual, he felt a surge of pride and respect, knowing that he had played a part in helping her see the light. But it wasn't just the flag that had brought about this change. In the weeks following their confrontation, Jack had made a point of reaching out to Karen, of trying to understand the root of her anger and the pain that had fueled it. And through these conversations, a bridge had been built, a connection forged that transcended the divisions that had once seemed so insurmountable. Together, they had begun to explore the complexities of the nation's history, the triumphs and tragedies that had shaped its identity. And in doing so, they had found common ground, a shared understanding of the challenges that had brought them to this point. It wasn't an easy path, and there were still moments of tension and misunderstanding. But with each passing day, Jack could see the walls coming down, the barriers of mistrust and resentment slowly crumbling away. And as he watched the flag fluttering in the breeze, he knew that this was just the beginning. The battles for the soul of the nation would continue, but with people like Karen by his side, fighting for the ideals that had once seemed so elusive, he felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. For in the end, the true meaning of the flag was not about who was right or wrong, but about the willingness to listen, to understand, and to work together to build a better future. And that was a lesson that Jack knew he would carry with him for the rest of his days. With a contented sigh, he turned away from the window, his gaze fixed on the framed photographs that adorned his living room. The faces of his fallen comrades looked back at him, their eyes shining with a fierce pride and determination that had once been the driving force behind his own life. But now, as he looked at them, he saw something else. A legacy of service, of sacrifice, and of the unwavering belief that the ideals they had fought for could and would prevail, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. And with that realization, he knew that the battle for the flag had been won, not just for him, but for all those who had given their lives to defend it. The fight would go on, but the foundation had been laid, and the path forward was clear.